I know you speak several foreign languages and also a good translator. I've always wanted to ask you something.
Sure, go ahead.
At the translation department where I study, our curriculum is focused more on learning various aspects of the foreign languages we study than on translation techniques. But I have noticed a long time ago that for some students translation skills won't improve only if they follow the more you learn the language, the better you can translate principle. I know one thing for sure, speaking a foreign language a lot in itself doesn't make you a translator. What's the case?
No, by profession I know one translation specialist who have been translating for a long time after graduation. Check it out. I think he will answer your questions.
Hi, my name is Andrei Zubenko. I'm a student of translation from Moscow State University of Railway Engineering.
I was told about you. I'm Pavel Mozgovoi, a lawyer and translator, but feel free to call me Pavel. Please sit down.
Oh, thanks.
Make yourself comfortable.
Yes. I've come to ask you some questions about translation as a profession. I heard you might help.
Sure. Ask whatever's on your mind.
Pavel, during all my years of studying at MIIT, I suspected that translation as a process somehow differs from just speaking a foreign language. Is it true, or maybe I'm exaggerating, and the more one speaks and learns a foreign language, the better they can translate?
Okay, Andrei, there is a big difference between, you're absolutely right, there is a big difference between just learning and speaking a foreign language and being able to translate from or into that language. Right? So, the point is that even if one is fluent in a foreign language, it doesn't make them a translator. That's because when you speak a foreign language and use it in talking to other people, you express your own thoughts, but when you translate what someone else writes or says, you have to express other people's thoughts, not your own.
Well, it means that when someone speaks directly to someone else, they know exactly what they're talking about from the start, but you can't say the same about someone who has to translate, right?
Yes, that's true. During the process of translation, the task is several times harder. The reason is that translation is about two important things. First, you always have to correctly get the meaning of a particular statement expressed in a foreign language. And second, you always must convey this meaning by using the means of another language, the one you translate into.
And what about the common belief that translation skills are developed only as a result of long-term communication in a foreign language? I always felt that, in my case at least, that isn't just so. For example, as I study English and German, I perfectly know many aspects of these languages, including grammatical ones. Russian is my mother tongue, but at times I still have some problems in translating some things.
Well, actually it's not only in your case. It's in my case too. Well, the truth is that translation skill is a standalone skill and it should be developed separately. Along with the process of studying a foreign language. So it's a constant effort and there is no room for perfection. Every translator sometimes faces situations where something seems untranslatable. So what? We just have to keep on making progress.
I often come across some cases where translation is done simply by replacing the words of the original with words of the target language. Even all the sentences look the same in structure as the sentences in the original. What do you think?
Awful. There is one thing to remember. Translation is never a simple replacement of words. It's a transfer of the meaning of the source information. I am sure you heard one popular expression first used by Google. Content is king, right? So, In our case, we can say for sure, context is king. Translation is all about an ability to grasp the context of the source information. So this task is much easier if you know both grammar of the foreign language you translate from and grammar of your own native language.
Can you provide some examples?
Sure. Take my case. As I work with English and Russian, I can say that many translation mistakes I find are caused by inability to see the verb in English sentences or confusion of parts of speech. This much for those native speakers of Russian who are not translators and try to translate English sentences. Verbs are often confused with past participles or with nouns spelled like similar verbs. For example, the word made used as a verb is confused with the similar past participle made, used when it comes, which is used when it comes after noun. This results in wrong translation of such sentences into Russian, or even failure of translation. One and the same English word may relate to different parts of speech. For example, cause, noun and verb, or books, noun and verb. I just love it. So as some people say, it's a classic case. I know all the words in the sentence, but can't translate it.
I often saw that some students just can't express the point of the original so that it could be still understandable to another person speaking the target language. Instead, some people prefer to avoid translating the parts of information when they think it's difficult for them to do it. I guess there must be something more. Isn't that so?
Indeed, translation ability and skills depend not only on the good command of a foreign language, but also on the person's proficiency in their native language. For example, again, I'll take it from my own practice. Translation of such sentence as "it's not uncommon to use the canoe for traveling here" can be a daunting task for someone who with a bad command of Russian and without strong translation skills. Impersonal sentences require a certain level of creativity from someone who tries to translate them, especially those such sentences which contain two negatives in succession, like not uncommon, not until, etc. This can be overcome by using the two negatives make an affirmative rule. And voila, we get an appropriate Russian sentence «Использование каноэ для проезда сюда – обычная практика», instead of which makes sense, instead of an awkward «Это не так уж редко использовать каноэ для путешествия сюда».
Can you tell me something about what makes a person a good translator? I'd like to know what professional features one must have to qualify as a translator.
Good question. Today's reality in the field shows that the most important thing for the translator to have is knowledge of the area that forms the context in which translation is done. Ideally, the translator must be a real specialist in such area, with relevant professional education. Nowadays there are a lot of people who call themselves translators, but who in reality have only courses in some foreign languages behind their shoulders. Can't use translation techniques, and above all, they are not experts in a given field. They form the basis for the cheap job market for various translation agencies which use their services through websites like pros.com, etc.
Thanks a lot, Pavel. That was a fascinating talk for me.
Thank you too for coming. I was glad to talk.